The Party Poker Premier League Poker has come to Vienna. This is a unique format in which poker's elite battle it out. 16 of the world's greatest players have been divided into 2 groups of 8. They each play 4 heats and are awarded points for where they finish. Those players in the top 3 positions in each group are guaranteed a place in the final. The players in 4th and 5th positions, they play heads up to determine who will take the last 2 spots. Last time, Group B took to the felt for their 3rd league match, and this is what happened.
Group B arrived at Montesino, and all the players were aware how crucial Heat 3 would be in determining who would make it to the final table. Patrik Antonius led the field with 22 points, and tied in 2nd place was Yevgeniy Timoshenko and Daniel Jungleman Cates. There was a big divide between the final table and playoff zone, where Scott Seiver and Vanessa Selbst sat. And in the elimination zone was Tom Dwan, Elky, and Ben Wilanovsky. It was an exciting heat and a do-or-die game for the man whose nickname never scared me. Group B is off and running for this 3rd match.
This could be really dangerous. Tom played this very quietly. Wow.
Kind of the end of Wilanovsky.
Oh, this is a bad card
It's a bad card for Ben.
for Ben.
That card just complicates things.
There he goes.
How is that off?
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
That's so hard. These players are all guaranteed now at least 2 points.
Wow.
Oh, gosh.
This is unbelievable. I think maybe he feels like he might be in trouble here.
Antonius seems like he's going to find a way not to go broke here. He was not happy about that at all.
No, he felt it. I think he knew where he was, but the situation was impossible.
So Yevgeniy's got to make a decision here against the Elky Open.
He doesn't want to play jacks out of position. He flops a set. This is very dangerous. This is a very bad card for Yevgeniy.
Butchered this hand really bad.
That's a really, really excellent fold.
Wow. This is how the chips are stacked after 51 hands. Tom Dwan still holds the lead after knocking out Benjamin Wilanovsky in the 1st hand. But Elky and Timoshenko, they are closing the gap after their big wins. Those struggling at the bottom of the leaderboard are Patrik Antonius and Vanessa Selbst with under 200K.
Group B's 3rd league match is about to get back underway. Let's go over to your commentators, Jessie May and Erik Seidel.
We expected big things from the big names in Group B, and we have not been disappointed so far. Thrilled to be watching this alongside of Group A's Erik Seidel. Now, Erik, a huge roster of names in Group B, but also a lot of big hands early on in this heat. Coolers all over the place.
Yeah, this was very unusual because most of the heats have played very tight in the first level or 2. And this one, the action was dictated by the hands, and it was pretty wild.
We've been talking about how are the leaderboard, the names going to affect the tactics, where players' points are, and we didn't expect it to be Patrik Antonius who was going to make the most extreme statement about what to do. But his grinding of a short stack, that's really unusual.
Oh yeah, I mean Patrik is a very aggressive player, and for him to be playing conservatively and playing for the points. I mean, it shows he has an understanding of what the structure is all about.
And also, it just shows how much he wants it, too, Are you surprised to see how much desire Patrik has to win something like this?
Yeah, it's fun to watch. He's really trying. It's good to see he's really working hard.
Of course, we'll see how it ends up, but the important thing, 16 points still to be awarded as the players in Group B try and position themselves for the final heat.
Respect. Show me the respect.
Who knows what I think sometimes?
I just had to outlast the 2 of you.
I was thinking about this.
You win.
We both profited.
So sick. So brutal.
I mean, like...
This has not gone well. I guess the last level for Vanessa Selbst. Obviously, Patrik Antonius getting knocked out was going to be a positive thing for her. That didn't happen. Her stack is in a 25 big blind stage, which is going to be tough as well.
Yeah, she's in a position where she's
I'm not too happy about
going to be forced to make a move at some point. So.
I mean, what spot is she going to find also? this table.
And the other 4?
Yeah, that's... You're just going on Vanessa?
It's just, for some reason, Eric, I mean, it's just certain players have that, I don't know, they have that charisma or whatever style, but Scott Seiver seems to be in the middle of all the important pots. Is it just because he's just generally one of the most active players at the table?
He's a central character in most of these dramas. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the cards have something to do with it. And, of course, yeah, the fact that Scott is pretty active makes people more likely to get involved with him.
No one wants this 50 to 1? It's just sitting out there? Patrik, you don't want a piece of that? It's sitting out there. There's only one of them out there. Someone else might take it.
Think how much you're going to hate yourself when you know you're right and you just turn down $1,000.
No, Patrik doesn't remember the board, he said.
He's just reading Vanessa. He's just reading Vanessa.
He's reading the worst every person in the world.
That's really funny. She was so confident in making the bet that Patrik just went along with it. He doesn't even remember which one it was.
It's just, well, she's gone to law school. She puts her money down. I'm in.
I kind of feel the same way. If she's willing to lose 40,000, it must be the right side.
You're trusting someone's memory, I know that much.
He's just reading the player.
I would be spooked if Elky chimes in.
Yeah, when Elky chimes in.
I think you're 100% right.
Oh, you don't remember?
Although it would be a great team, Vanessa and Tom, to play the old two men and a stranger hustle on Patrik Antonius.
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, all these players are trustworthy, and you don't have to worry about that type of thing. But there certainly are lineups where you wouldn't be comfortable doing that at all.
Vanessa has opened this. Timoshenko small blind, and in his mind, she has to shove or pass.
Yeah, he's putting some pressure on her.
She's going to shove, isn't she? Or do you only shove if you think Timoshenko can be light here?
Yeah, I mean, she's in a tough spot. I don't think she's going to go with it. It's just because basically her whole tournament life would be at stake.
I'm feeling good about Jungle not taking action. That's pretty strong.
That's very good.
As far as the Premier League leaderboard goes, she has 10 points in hand, which is more points than Tom Dwan, who has 9, and Elky, who has 8. So, you know, there is this weird value for her towards about outlasting one of them.
That's for sure. And you had 9-7. The 8th was
On the other hand, Eric, wow, there she goes.
There you go.
Then did you have the gutter or the open?
On the other hand, it's going to be tough for her, probably in her mind, to outlast them unless she gets some chips.
Well, I think you'd be a little more excited if it was the 10.
Pretty excited.
You'd be jumping like.
I don't have any idea.
Everyone's gonna get punished.
I mean, I would be really happy.
Well, that's a good play by her.
It's gutsy, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. She's putting her whole tournament life on. I mean, he has to be bluffing. Anything that's not a bluff, he's going to call with. She had the right stack for a gamble, but it was, you know, because it was enough to get him out if he didn't have anything. But that was a big risk. She you know, once again, she shows that she is not afraid to gamble on a read.
I'd be interested to know how light she would do that. Obviously, she's been willing to do it pretty light. We saw it. She might have just, I don't know. Might have thought there were certain dynamics that really contributed towards Timoshenko leaning towards a bluff there. I wonder if there were. Position she raised from or something. Jungleman versus Dwan again. Both these guys, and you can understand why now they could have played for so many hands and so longs. They both love just peeling off flops. I mean, they're sort of like both agreeable for that.
Two action guys.
Every hand they played must have just been raise call.
Big card for Jungleman.
Yeah.
But Tom's not getting out of line here. Although, given the action on the flop, you know, it's interesting that Tom just was looking for his flop and didn't really want to mess around, but that was certainly a card that that he could have considered bluffing on.
What is your hand recall like?
I'm not particularly good at it, but you know, of course, when it's a situation where the card is relevant, you know, it may stick in your mind.
I think 40 to 1 is a good price.
I guess one of the reasons that Tom is getting really active here, I mean, there is a rhythm thing about it. Well, he's got hands as well. But with Vanessa having 30 big blinds, she has to play a little tight right now.
42.
Tighter than she would have as far as coming over the top of it.
There's a run on the bank.
This is like Jungleman having enough. And Tom always seems to get this sort of ace-jack, which is a difficult hand, isn't it, to 3-bets?
Yeah, it really is.
42. 42.
Against Elky, he chose to call. He made a 4-bet with ace-queen against Vanessa.
But we know they're there.
I cover over.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he has been playing these things because he's out of position.
You get to be
It really puts him at a disadvantage.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
In this case, he's clearly right.
7 check.
You'd think Jungleman would have earned a little credit by now. He actually has been quite quiet lately, but
Yeah, exactly. He hasn't been 3-betting much.
One bet 55.
and this hand's going to develop quite interestingly, isn't it? Because I mean, obviously Dwan will call here, but he will just call, right? That's his only play.
I would think he would call, but I could see him raising.
More of a, if he does, this has more to do with sort of the dynamics, the history between him and Jungleman in this type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. By raising, he kind of commits himself to the pot. But then again, he doesn't really want to be giving out free cards if he has the best hand. So that's the problem for him. That's, this is one of the reasons why it's such a difficult hand to play out of position. But it turns out it's going to work in this spot.
I mean, now that he's hit this flop, you really think he mentally has to kind of commit himself for Kate's stack, which is in the 300,000 range, really.
Yeah, I mean, this would really damage him if it turns out that that Jungleman has the better hand. So it's a very, very difficult spot that he's in. If you're sitting in his seat, you just don't know.
I mean, just from what we've seen so often in this Premier League, Erik, if Dwan raises here, check raising an ace-high board with a single pair of aces, that's really player-specific because, I don't know, it just seems like guys check call with that hand against everybody so much of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Does that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that standard play is just a call there. But, I don't mind Tom's play, and I don't know if Jungleman had moved in, perhaps Tom would have thrown it away.
His reputation is pretty well known. He's pretty much capable of anything, but you know, but in a good way.
He can play his hands in many different ways, and that's the biggest challenge to play against him. So it's very hard to put him on the hands.
He's like the kind of guy that wants to just beat you because he loves the game theory of it. He's not out to destroy souls. He's just out to win because that's the best result you can do.
I played a lot with him out in Macau, and yeah, he's obviously a very talented player, and he's capable of all sorts of moves as well, so he can make you scratch your head a few times.
He gives you that stare, and is it the I have nothing stare or I have the nut stare? Very difficult to tell with him, but always an entertaining player to watch and to play with.
So I got 6 points the first day, 3 the second, so I only have 9. I think we'll probably need like 28 to get in the top 3, and probably like 22 to 28 to be in the heads up. So I definitely need to go win or second or something like that. I don't really have any idea how many points people have other than mine. I'm just going to go out there and try to win.
I win 40K if I'm not right. And I win 1,500
The
if
prop
I'm right.
betting continues between our Group B players, and the bets are getting bigger.
Don't forget that juicy 8 to 1.
That's juicy.
I'm 40 points.
15. Yeah.
You do wonder how many 1 to 25 shots Vanessa has lost in her life. It's probably, you know, it's either 0 or 1. I don't know which one the number is.
It's a good example of how trustworthy all these players are, though, that they're betting on something that's already happened, and they all know that the other person would not make the bet if they knew.
Sure, and Elky has been sitting there quiet as a mouse, right?
Yeah.
Without trying to profit over the fact that he knows what he had.
Well, of course, he has no option. There's nothing he could say. There's no way that anybody would take any bet from him. But it can't be easy sitting there listening to all the action.
Maybe Tom's been on the phone, like, you know, like a real trader, and he's booking the other way at different odds, and he's just influencing the ups and downs.
6 check.
When you're looking up and you're like, you're booking 30 here, then 20 there, then 20 here, and 30 the other way there. He controls the entire market.
Interesting idea, Scott, although it's really hard to think of anyone besides the 6 people at that table who are going to be involved in this proposition.
This is a tough spot for Patrik because they both check. I'm sure Patrik thinks his jack has to be good.
16.
And he's in pretty bad shape.
Oh my god, just for that. Yeah. She's right, like call the way they're doing that ice series.
Not just that, the pot total now 65. Patrik's got about 80 odd back.
Well, you couldn't too much of this
So this could be costly.
So you can really like
Yeah, it's very tough.
Oh my god, if you could have just booked
I mean, the way the action has been so far, I couldn't blame Patrik for thinking that he has the best hand.
Great profits in your past.
That was except one check down to that one.
Check, so.
You know, I let him buy out for like.
Jungle quickly let him off.
No, I mean, I think
Kicker plays.
I lost if I tried to punish him for all of it. It was just too much. I think he got the termination. But
63 hands. It's been 3 levels, and great stuff from Tom Dwan and of course Timoshenko. The big story in this whole match so far, of course, the big hand between Timoshenko and Grospellier. And for Vanessa Selbst and Patrik Antonius, it was tough early, and they're just trying to hold on in.
Okay, let's see this. Go for 30K instead of 3. Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, what'd you guys have? What'd you have?
2 jacks.
The players are now on a break and finding out the results of their prop bets. After hours of deliberation, Yevgeniy finds out that Elky had a full house, and the bets are paid off as the players check the online block.
Internet. I got 40,000.
I don't know why you even check raise, because.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's the first one too. It's gonna be the first one. 10x high.
I lost the bet and I still love it.
Join us after the break as the 7 players return to the felt for this exciting league match. Welcome back to Party Poker Premier League Poker from the European city Vienna. Let's go over to Kara Scott, who has found a poker legend on the rail.
Look who I managed to find in the crowd. It's Mike Sexton, and I saw you taking a look at the table and saying hello to the players. Amazing lineup, isn't it?
I believe that the table going on now is the toughest table in the history of poker. I'm talking about all time in history. These 7 players that are left, really, it's amazing how talented they are and how tough this table is.
It really is, and we have such a mix of cash game players and tournament players. Who do you think might have the edge in this structure?
Well, you know, you think the big cash game players are the best poker players, but the truth is, when it comes to single table tournament strategy, you know, you got to go with tournament guys. You know, a guy like Elky, for example, you know, who plays a lot of tournaments or something. But believe me, to pick a guy in this heat would be, you know, just like, you know, you might as well draw a number out of a hat.
Thank you so much for the insight, Mike.
Okay, it's exciting. This is fun to watch.
Blinds are going up to 5 and 10,000. Here is Group B as it stands. It could have easily been a 7-handed heat, excuse me, a 6-handed heat by now. Antonius hanging in there. And Erik, if you look at the league table or the chip stacks, does anybody have a reason in your mind to kind of change gears this level?
Well, I don't think that anybody's really going to step it up. I mean, I think that Vanessa's in a position where she actually has to make a move. So Yevgeniy hasn't returned to the table. Is that right?
Wow. Absolutely. Very unlike Yevgeniy. I mean, that's not him at all. You can only imagine that he worried about having to pay off that bet.
Right. He's probably at the cage right now.
But Dwan's open this. Now Dwan's...
We lost the bet, but everyone, including like the commentators and Seidel,
Dwan's open
like,
both pots.
Like, we happened to lose, but...
We had a great side.
And this is 17 or 18 big blinds for Selbst. Fairly standard to Dwan's open?
And Scott wakes up with aces.
Oh, boy. This is going to throw everything.
So now he's pretending to think, because he'd like Tom to get back into the game. He doesn't want to lose Tom. He'd love to make this 3-way.
He has a real problem here, Erik, in that he's only got 300,000. So there's no credibility to calling here. It really kind of gives away his hand more than anything else, doesn't it?
Anything he does. I mean, he's just hoping that Tom has, you know, has an ace king or big pair that he'll go with. Of course, we know he doesn't. So all this acting is for naught.
Is he trying to make it look like he has? Yeah. And for Vanessa Selbst, there's been a bit of this throughout the league for her. She keeps running into things.
Yeah, I mean, this was a tough spot because Tom raised an early position, so she's really laying a big price that her hand is going to be good, the ace-10. I think it was a little early maybe to go with it, but of course she knows these mathematical situations pretty well, better than I do, so I could be wrong.
Must mean small pair. Small pair. Oh, I'm ahead. It's king, queen or something.
And for Vanessa, if she doesn't outrun the aces, well, it's very tough, especially, I was going to say, with the 10 gone. But there's now one more 10 in the deck for her.
She's drawing slim, but she is alive.
So you're saying there's hope?
Again, Wes.
Not enough. Selbst will take 2 points for 7th place, which will put her on 12. And
yeah, I mean, that really puts her in a position where she's forced to win the last heat.
She'll be, as far as the leaderboard goes, she will now be 4th in the clubhouse. And if either Dwan or Elky go out next, she'll be level with them or even a point ahead. So there are some results involving Dwan and Elky going out in the next 2 spots that are going to give her a little more leverage in the final heat. But either way, she's going to have her work cut out for her.
And we've lost Vanessa from this heat, taking 2 points forward to add to your 10, 12 total. How does this change things for you?
Well, you know, it's obviously a disappointing finish to today. It just makes it really important that in the fourth heat I come out on top or at least in second place to have a chance of moving on. So it'll definitely change my strategy going into the fourth heat.
Real sure, and I assume they got variant.
They'll come this time, without belaboring the point, in the fourth match where everyone will sort of have a piece of paper next to them, trying to keep track of what every knockout means.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and here's aces again. All right. Back to the juice decks.
No, I mean, I assume I'm wrong.
I know that you were curious to kind of see how the game flow went. One of the reasons you wanted to watch this game, and Erik, and really all you've seen is just a bunch of coolers. You get the idea that these aces are out every hand now, don't you?
Yeah, this just shows you these guys are not just good players; they're luck boxes too. So Jungleman's picking a bad time to re-raise here.
Yeah, he obviously has got, wow, and look at Patrik.
What a terrible spot for Patrik to be in.
I mean, how do you assess the different players right now?
Well, what's happened there? Did Tom open for a raise?
Tom opened for a min raise.
Twice.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually
no. Elky's flatted it with the aces.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, that makes it very difficult for Patrik then, because if it had been two extra raises, then it would have been easy for him to throw tens away.
And I guess that's why Jungleman made the 3-bet here. I mean, in his mind, Elky is flatting with either a fairly weak hand or, I guess, sometimes aces. Is that what it pretty much is?
Yeah, I think that he's thinking Elky is flatting with a couple of suited cards or ace jack or something like that, hands that would not stand an extra raise. And
wow,
it's an interesting spot because Tom kind of smells that Jungleman might be up to something here, but he's got to worry about Elky, and now Elky has to go into his act here.
So tilted, it was wrong.
Quite clever of Elky to induce this action.
Yeah, it's a very powerful play. I mean, now that
and now Jungleman gets the bad news, although in some ways it's taken away the obligation of him to stick the rest of his stack in on the flop.
Yeah.
More than you. Nice hand.
Yeah, he got himself in a really bad spot there. That was well played by Elky.
Who now is above $500,000 and in Seiver and Dwan territory. And you just think to yourself, if this ends up with Elky, Dwan, and Seiver taking the top 3 spots,
I just want the corporation to pay. I wanted
could easily happen. Those points added to the bottom of the leaderboard is going to put Group B in a very similar standing to Group A, with everybody bunched.
Yeah, that makes it interesting. I mean, everybody is alive. Group A, there's only one guy that's out of it. And even the guy who's in the lead could be out if he goes bust right away.
Patrik, I guess you could say Patrik kind of got off the hook a little bit. If Jungleman hadn't picked that moment to 3-bet, Patrik could easily have gotten himself all in with those 2 tens.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. I think that Patrik would have moved in. So Jungleman did him a huge favor there. That's a good point.
Patrik has been under 100,000 since I think it's the 8th or 9th hand. He was down to 55, within the first orbit of the table.
Yeah, he owes Jungleman a nice dinner.
And he's already picked up 1 point, Patrik, with Vanessa going out. So in a sense, it's been mission accomplished for him already.
I don't want to gamble. I don't want to gamble. I don't want to risk on my change.
Yeah, I mean, he's being very conscious of, you know, every point counts here. And just waiting it out and see it's working quite well for him.
5 raise, 20,000. 6-4.
But I would imagine he's probably going to get in the next 3 hands.
Stack sizes here. Tom on 640 odd and Yevgeniy on 400.
3 players.
Elky in between them. 3 take a flop.
7 check. 8 check. 5 check.
If Yevgeniy doesn't bet that there, it's sort of an idea that he just doesn't want to make the pot too big.
he's trapping. He knew the 6 was coming.
7 check.
Because Elky should bet here, right? He has to.
8 bet. 37.
He's very happy he played it the way he did, because had he bet the flop, I think it would have been over. It would have either been over or he would have gotten check raised. And in this spot, he's going to win himself a little pot. And he just calls.
What does it look like when he just calls there?
Well, yeah, it's hard to say exactly what he's doing. I mean, he doesn't know 100% that Elky doesn't have 8-9. That's part of it. And, you know, and he also doesn't mind playing it a little slowly, just in case Elky bluffs another barrel.
The decision here, how often do I get Elky to call with worse? How often is he going to give me some really uncomfortable check raise? Although check raises are not nearly as uncomfortable for Timoshenko as it would be for the other players, him having 19 points.
I'm in the purchasing business.
How often have you played with Elky, Erik?
I don't, you know, I guess I've played a fair amount with him over the last couple of years.
I'm trying to decide. I might just want deuces against your hand.
No, he seems to consistently bring it. You know, he's you know, Elky's background is he used to be a top video game player, and you know, when he plays online, he's playing many screens at the same time. So for him to adjust to the patience that this takes, I think, you know, says a lot about his game, because he's really used to, you know, constant action. You know, when you're playing those video games, it's just, you know, every split second you've got a decision, and it's the same when he's playing online many games. So
yeah, we're not even just talking like 10 or 15 tables. I mean, he's a, you know, 25 tabler. I mean, that's
so he shows a lot of range by having the patience to also play in this type of format and play so well.
That's all one. Okay. 1 check.
These guys have now, they've knocked heads. They've knocked heads 4 or 5 times already.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You can tell that they each know the other person's game, and it creates for some interesting spots.
It really does. I mean, and I just keep thinking about this thing that, you know, they look at each other, but it's almost like,
I didn't quite remember.
you know, they know each other so well, but probably don't have, maybe they've only met in person 3 or 4 times before, type of thing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it is a funny thing that both of them have played each other enough and probably have tremendous data on the other person's game, that they know each other about as well as any 2 players might know one another.
But it's still like, I'm off today, like let's double check.
And that does make them a little bit unusual.
I the nuts on the river because he was so scared.
I mean, Patrik is similar, and I'm sure he knows quite a lot about Tom's game.
With the queen of clubs and
Jungleman as well.
4 clubs with the ace and the king.
For sure, but definitely Patrik and Tom have a much more personal relationship. Because I
raise again, and he just like
you know, some of the high-stakes live games in Macau and Las Vegas.
I was like, what's
that
the guy
sort of
doing?
thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
I'd say Dwan's been fairly relentless. I'm starting to think now that he's opening more pots than any other player.
That's true. He's tied with the nuts.
And Seiver's just called in the big blind.
It's like ace, king, 7, 8 with 4. Ace, king, 7, 8, 5. Ace, king, 7, 8 of clubs.
I think that's a really silly roll.
Yeah, you're supposed to get a penalty.
7 check.
True, forgot.
Because some of the times it may be relevant, and you may want to call just to see the other person's hand. When you're so sure they can't have anything they can call.
Yeah, but then not.
18.
That's a really small bet. 18 into 53.
Like you said.
I mean, you can only fold if you're Dwan if you have nothing.
Yeah, I mean, he really doesn't have much. I mean, he has a little gut shot that he doesn't know for sure will be good if he hits it. And he doesn't know if his queen or jack would be good if he hits that. So.
But isn't it such a small bet, it's kind of like taunting Tom to raise it?
Yeah, that there is that problem for sure.
Didn't look back that time.
Thought about that actually. Before I folded it, I was like, I'm not gonna look back this one. Give nothing away.
That's so much worse.
Yeah, that was a tough play by Tom for sure.
Just means it must have been suited.
He turned a sure loser into
more likely
an easy win.
Yeah, that's good.
Chip leader on 700K. Dwan's making this look easy, really, ever since the first hand.
It's such a challenging lineup too. It's really, you know, it's just difficult to find any spots with much value against these guys. Well, with Patrik being first in, it looks like he just might move in. I think he will.
He's really let it go. Wow!
Ooh. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
So sick.
What's the explanation?
One raise, 20.
Well, is Jungleman low in chips?
Jungleman's got, only about 18, 19 blinds.
I guess he's just looking to pick up an extra couple of points. I think that's the point for him now. And maybe he's right because of the point system. That each point's worth so much.
Right. Well, he's looking at the value right now of making it as easy to get to the top 3 as possible. He knows he's going to be top 5. And the difference between first and third in the league is very negligible. It's just a few extra chips at the final table right now.
Right. Yeah, I don't think he's too concerned about that. Really, just getting into the top 3 is the goal.
Still, that was extreme. That was really extreme.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
One check.
Daniel's raised from the button at the same time that his food has arrived. So it's.
So Scott flopped 2 pair and checking it to his buddies here. Of course, that queen is such a dangerous card too.
One bet. 40,000.
Is he trying to represent the ace with a delayed continuation bet, or?
Well, this is an interesting spot, it seems to me, because Jungleman is low in chips. Scott and Scott has such a vulnerable hand that he should really consider raising in that spot. But it looks like he may have played it perfectly if he gets all of Jungleman's chips.
Yeah,
here.
he's only got a pot-sized bet left.
How much?
And even though it's only half of Scott Seiver's stack,
there's no chance he's folding this.
Just because of the overall way he's played, underrepresented his hand.
Yeah, I mean he's getting 2-1 in a spot where it's very likely that that it's a bluff, and it's also possible Jungleman could be betting for value with a hand worse than his.
You
win.
Showdown, please.
Really?
Showdown, please. What is
I just lose. This is the thing.
Seiver's got all of Jungleman's stack. And yet again, Patrik Antonius. I mean, he's the second victor in this. Jungleman's out. Down to like 55,000 out of the first round. He's outlasted Selbst, outlasted Jungleman. He'll take 3 points, which is going to put Daniel Cates on 22. Amazing for Patrik Antonius to make the top 5 here with, I guess, really without ever doubling up, really.
It really is amazing. He's been so low. He's just been, and now look at the difference between him and everybody else. He has about 1/8 of the chips as the next lowest person.
Tom Dwan has held the chip lead for most of this match, but can he go on to win it? Join us for more action after the break.
The difference between Antonius having 24, which is what he'd have if he had gone out 7th, and 26, which is what he's guaranteed to at least have now, massive. You can see that I don't think 2 people can pass him.
Very good bets.
She had to do that though to try and poach off
Timoshenko could get 8 points, and Seiver, that would be it.
It's kind of it's amazing what he's done here. He's really gotten himself in a good spot. Now he's going to go in pretty much with anything. Now that Jungleman is busted.
I feel all 3 parties worked and they
that
were
was
in
it.
best
I thought he'd accomplished his mission.
People could have teamed
now
up,
he
but they
definitely
weren't
has. He'd actually be able to get in very light at this stage, right?
This is really the market at work right here.
Such a beautiful hand Tom has.
Not anymore.
check.
And that's an odd check by Elky as well. I mean, under the heading of just weird deception.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't want to create a big pot here. And, you know, he wants to control the pot size. And what's interesting is that, so he checked, and now a card comes off that's very good for Tom. And Tom, certainly in this spot, could check raise.
Because if you're Tom, what do you think Elky can have that has value? You know, that's strong enough to call a raise, right?
Yeah. Wow, and he gets there.
Elky trying to figure this one out. We'll have a look at Tom's chips.
Yeah, I mean, Elky probably thinks his hand is still good. But of course, the spade is a dangerous card.
Insta called by Tom. And Elky's not going to be happy about that, but
yeah, I think Elky was betting for value there, and you know, it just turned out that Tom hit a very deceptive king, and now Elky is kind of kicking himself for not betting the flop.
It's funny how when you think about that these guys take chances, where they sort of take their chances, you know, checking one street to pick up maximum value and stuff. It's all about that kind of gambling rather than I'll just stick it in here and hope to outflip this guy.
Raise 20,000. 5 calls.
All right, finally has a hand.
He's gonna win this heat. I mean,
it would be quite a win.
Talk about the Terminator. It just keeps coming.
Even now he's reluctant. It's
My
very
God.
funny.
Blinds are 5 and 10,000. He's going to be mathematically eliminated by the end of this level, really. Wow.
It's so interesting. I don't think anybody else at the table would even think here. They would just put the chips in. But Patrik is, has a particular strategy here. And I certainly understand it because somebody opening up, to a raise the king queen could be in a very bad.
I mean, also, I guess it's just he has to really. But
could be in a bad spot.
The value of doubling up is not massive for Patrik with the way he's played so far. It's really how many hands could he last, isn't it?
Yeah, you just hate to be second into the pot when there's a raise.
I was thinking about this.
Oh no.
You're calling? Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's who knows? Who knows what I think sometimes?
I think some of the young guys call this a nit roll, but you'd never call Patrik a nit. So I mean, it just doesn't work.
That's true.
And as Seiver points out, there's plenty of split pots here. That's one of them.
And there it is.
Oh.
That is one of them.
We both profited.
But I just guess, Erik, that Patrik's got this overall plan that he never really wants to double up. I mean, he's just sort of computing how many more hands can I last before I'm eliminated, and nothing else matters, really. Because these other players are going to do the job of elimination for him.
Yeah, if he can hang in long enough. But now, unfortunately, he's so low that he can only last a couple of rounds.
Yeah.
There has been this sort of idea about Tom Dwan. He has had some tournament results, but he's still one of the few players at this level never to have won a World Series of Poker bracelet. He obviously has been trying really hard the last couple of years. And do you think, is there some sort of question about his ability to close out tournaments?
I don't think so. I don't think that's the problem for him. I think that it's just a matter of the no-limit fields. No limit is the strongest game. And those fields are always so big that no matter how well you play, it takes a lot of luck to get through them. So he will win many bracelets, I'm sure. But the situation now at the World Series, if you want to win bracelets, you've got to be a top limit player, and limit is not a strong suit.
Patrik's called this raise here. He's got 2 chips left. He's got 2 chips left. Do you think there is any chance he might not put them in?
Well, it's not a very good flop for his hand.
It really isn't, is it?
I guess he was hoping that an 8 or a 9 would be good.
Oh.
Now he's got it. Now he needs running straight.
And yet, sort of a watery end here for Patrik Antonius, but at the same time, you have to give him credit for executing his strategy to, oh my gosh, he's got an out?
He's up to 8%.
This one will be a bit much.
Oh.
Okay, guys, it was a fun day.
I would like to see it. But he did. He executed his strategy, Patrik, and it's paid off. He's going to be in a strong position come the 4th heat.
Yeah, every one of those knockouts was huge for him, and it was, I think maybe he felt that some of the players were overplaying, and he could sit it out, and things certainly went the way he wanted them to.
The quality of Antonius turned a horrible start into a solid mid-table finish.
And we lose Patrik with 4 points in this third heat. You actually went quite short-stacked earlier on, and how important was it to balance having other people go out before you to actually, playing maybe what would have been your normal game at that stack?
Yeah, it was. I got very lucky in that way. It worked out well. What happened in the beginning was the worst thing, and again, I feel like I got very lucky, but I'm very unhappy with the call I made against Yevgeniy. I had a pretty big hand, but I just saw he wasn't bluffing, and sometimes I'm just not capable of going with my read, and so that hand is made me kind of upset, but happy with the result.
All right, well, good luck in the last heat. You've got, I believe, 26 points going forward, so it's not a bad position to be in.
Yeah, it's a good spot. We'll see how it's gonna end up.
Okay, good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
So there's Group B. The win here by Timoshenko would put him on 35 points, which would be massive in terms of this league right now. Four-handed play, and with this lineup, Erik, I mean, these guys are going to kind of get on with it a little bit, aren't they?
Yeah, you've got a bunch of very, very excellent aggressive players here, and nobody's shown great aggressiveness so far, but things could definitely pick up now. I mean, all of these guys are capable of some very serious plays.
There was a really weird dynamic in Heat 2, four-handed. One of the craziest hands we've seen in the Premier League up to this point. That all started out with Timoshenko kind of flatting a raise, an opening raise.
Close decision there.
With, well, he's got a lot, he's got 40 big blinds off of 20 big blinds, so maybe it's not so comparable. And the big discussion was how often does Yevgeniy and with how many hands does Yevgeniy flat raises four-handed? In that spot, he had 2 4s.
All of these guys are used to being very aggressive before the flat.
Patrik now has like 25 or 26.
That makes for a fun dynamic.
Yevgeniy, how many do you have coming into today?
19. Yev has 19.
So you're just about locked up. 6, 8, 11,
I wouldn't
16.
say that.
I mean, you have 25 now. If you bust right now, then all you're going to need is like just about.
When I came in, what I knew like I had to do, like winning would work, but if I couldn't like get like top 3 or 4, I just had to outlast the 2 of you. So that just went out the window. Tom, do you have over
Players talking among themselves about what they have to do, and
do you have 8 or 9? I can't see your stack at all.
It really isn't going to be set in stone.
I was going to ask how badly you wanted
Even for Yevgeniy, as he was saying himself, unless he gets one more spot.
No, I get to see it in 10 minutes. Nah.
It's probably not going to make it on the block. Because those kind of hands don't.
Yevgeniy's got a great negotiation going on here with Dwan. He says, I'll tell you what I had a few hands ago if you give me one free show for the future. Seiver's opened this, min raised to 30, and Yevgeniy's off of like 26 or 27 big blinds. Do you think in those terms, Erik, number of big blinds?
Well, I never did, and it's only recently that I've had to start thinking about this a little bit because it's kind of the language that people speak. So, I do have to get used to it.
I'm a little bit of a hand.
Check what happened here. I mean, I think
So Scott opened and Yevgeniy moved in with ace-queen.
Yeah, and I mean, Tom had ace-10 in the middle. He folded. It was a massive re-raise.
He called.
It's all of Seiver's chip. No, excuse me, it's all of Yevgeniy's chips. Do you think this is a really big call for that kind of size raise?
I'm really surprised by this call. Oh, I'm sorry. I had it reversed. I didn't realize that. I thought.
But it was still 30 up to 430.
Right. No, that was a tough call from Scott. I'm sorry. I had the hands reversed though.
A tough call, but you can understand it.
There's
right?
a lot of
it's a very good call.
There's so many backdoors that it sums up to one front door, I feel.
And my guess is that Yevgeniy feel like he could put that pressure on because of his standing in the league tables and Scott's desire to win. Wow, there's possibilities here. 7 or an 8 now, and Seiver's going to be very short. Over 800K in this pot, plus the money left in Seiver's stack is going to put him well over $1 million. And for Timoshenko, he'll take 6 points.
And Scott takes the lead.
Here's the group as it stands. A win for one of our remaining players is worth 16 points. This means if Seiver gets first, he will go into the lead. And a win for either Dwan or Elky will put them into the top 3. So it's a crucial stage of this game. As for Timoshenko, he now leaves with 25 points and is on his way to winning through to the final table.
Adding 6 points to his total, we lose Yevgeniy. You seem to be kind of mulling over that last decision in your head. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think I actually misjudged my stack in that hand, and I'm actually really angry with myself because I feel like I didn't think about the spot long enough, and the more I think about it, I think I had more chips than I had, and I'm really upset at myself at shoving there, even though Scott's not going to have a hand that can call very often. I think with how many chips I have, there were better ways to play that hand.
We return for more exciting Premier League action as our 3 remaining players battle it out for maximum points here in Vienna.
I'd never,
There's 3 left.
So long.
Elky on the shorter stack.
I didn't remember him.
He's got half as many as Dwan, who has 2/3 the stack of Seiver.
Even though Elky is significantly lower than both of them, if he doubles through any of them, it would all of a sudden he would be back in there, and it would greatly affect them, particularly Tom. So he's got a very dangerous stack still.
Kind of ignoring the chip counts for a second, Erik. I mean, who of these 3 that are left has sort of, in your mind, maybe done the most with what they've got? Kind of maximized their...
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, they do have kind of different approaches, but you know, I'm a huge fan of all 3 of their games. So
Who looks after the?
I don't know. Does anybody stick out for you?
Oh, really?
No, well, I think Tom Dwan's been awesome today. I mean, and just from the start there, you know, the idea of him getting Wilanovsky to stack off the first hand, and just sort of those kind of, I don't know, he gets, when it works for Tom, it just all seems to work perfectly, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And I just kind of feel like if you would put Tom Dwan's cards in another player's hands, they wouldn't be sitting there on the mountain in the stack that he had.
That's a sign of a great player.
Elky wins 39K, a small pot, but at this stage every hand counts as these players try to take down maximum points. Let's go over to Karascott, who is catching up with Elky's partner, Kathy Hahn.
Kathy's here watching Elky play. It's got to be difficult. Sometimes it feels almost more stressful to be on this side of the table than to be at the table itself.
Yes, it's true because, you know, Elky is really popular and well known for pushing himself, you know, to the maximum. And as his partner, I feel really stressful. Always in distress when he's at this very important tournament. So yeah.
Good luck to Elky.
Thank you very much, and good luck to every other players, but not as much as Elky.
I'm sure everybody will be relieved when the people who make the final table, when they can get back to not having to worry about the points and can just try and make the best decision given the hand.
Something very comforting about being able to stand in a tournament and just get it all in on the first level, huh? Go home or double up. I mean, how different have you found the decisions you have to make? Have you found yourself several times in this tournament, sort of, as Eugene Kachalov was seen to do a couple times, actually scratching your head in a sense?
Yeah, I mean, I do find myself thinking about it. I don't know how much it's affected me, but it's tightened me up for sure.
Erik, I'd just so love to know why this is so different, dynamic than the last round when Elky limped with the ace and folded. Here he's raised and gotten 3-bet and called.
Yeah, well, partly I guess because it's the second time, and he doesn't want Scott to think he can run all over him. And also Queen 10 is plays better than an ace 6 out of position.
And then the third thing being that he's just right both times, right?
Yeah, and his spidey senses are heightened. And this is kind of interesting the way he now he bets it, which is kind of funny because I think he might be better off checking this and allowing Scott to bluff at it. There's not that much upside to betting it if Scott's already checked twice. He can call, or he could raise you.
What is the argument for betting?
Yeah, I don't like the bet. I would have given Scott a chance to bluff at it.
As it is, Elky picks up a much needed pot and actually narrows the gap between himself and Dwan a little bit.
Yeah, every little bit is so significant because you're not just picking up chips for yourself, but you're taking them away from the people that you're fighting with.
Elky started out this heat 1 point behind Dwan. The difference between third and second right now is massive.
Uh-oh. It's a slightly dangerous situation for Elky only because they've had this three-hand history now. So he's got to be worried that Scott is running over him.
So you could easily see Elky deciding to just ship it in here, expecting Scott to fold a lot of bluffs.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I think Elky's gonna throw the hand away, but it is, because of the history of the last two hands, it does create a situation that he wants to make sure Scott's not running all over him. I mean, this is a spot where a good player can make a read, which is what Elky is doing, and it just turns out that he was wrong this time.
The suited ace means that you always got a shot anyway, even if you're wrong,
Yeah.
right?
But I mean, that was what was dangerous about it, because Scott is an aggressive player, and a very big percentage of the time he's doing that on a bluff.
And Elky will be going out third unless he catches the 7 or the ace.
He deviated from his game plan a little bit there.
Yeah, he couldn't resist, really. Sort of.
I don't blame him, given him the situation and the history over those hands, though.
Good luck. Good luck.
Elky is going to still have a little work to do to make the final table, but he's had a couple good showings. This is his best finish yet. Have a look at the league table. Scott Seiver smiling. It's all about those races. Elky up to 16 points, but both Dwan and Seiver really guaranteed to pass him. And Elky will be as worried about fending off those below him in the fourth match to make sure he maintains a playoff spot, as he will about trying to ensure a final table placing.
How much have you had to adjust your game, the normal game that you would be playing, because of the point structure?
I mean, on this one, I didn't have that many tough decisions, but on I think the last one, it would be the one who's, like, the last hit is going to be need a lot of adjustment, because it really depends on a lot of players. Like, and if some other players get kind of short early, then I can't really gamble or take the shot until they burst, especially if I'm ahead of them in points, so it's going to be super close.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kara.
After the break, we are heads up here in Group B's third league match. Tom Dwan and Scott Seiver will battle it out for a top 3 place on the league table.
We're heads up here for Group B's third league match. Let's go back over to your commentary team, Jesse May and Erik Seidel.
Scott Seiver has been here before. He's gotten a second place, a bagel, and now is in the heads up. For Tom Dwan, it's been a more consistent few heats.
No. I'm like a favorite.
Come on.
I mean,
Come on.
I'm obviously not going to bet
if you want,
that
I'll take even money that you're
for sure.
That's for sure. Oh my.
Looking at the stats, though, between them, Erik, look at Tom Dwan's 3-bet percentage. This is the lowest, I think, ever. You can't really get any lower than this. I mean,
yeah, and especially for Tom, who's known as an aggressive player. The fact that he's not 3-betting is surprising.
Yeah, beyond that, you know, we know a lot about Seiver. He opens a lot. He's very aggressive. And usually these heads-up affairs with the blinds big, it's hard to get a lot of play in them, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, what you have is such a tough match here, because they're both such excellent players that you know, we'll see how it goes, but they're both excellent and they're both aggressive, and I think Scott might be slightly more aggressive than Tom in this spot, but we'll see.
Scott, Tom started with the queens. Look at this.
That's a nice way to start off the match. 2 queens. Scott started with a 2-1 advantage here.
And Tom Dwan, actually, I'm just thinking about, these guys are a lot deeper than I had even realized. Blind still 15,000. So you're talking about Tom Dwan being nearly 50 big blinds deep, which is, like, for this stage of the tournament, is massive.
115.
And Tom just couldn't be more thrilled, and can barely contain himself here.
He's trying to figure out, I guess, somewhere between making a small 4-bet to try and induce a shove, or maybe even calling.
I think he's going to re-raise. I think the call is too risky, because you know, he has to be afraid that you know, an ace or a king could beat him out.
And that even by making a small 4-bet, sorry, up to, like, I guess he could make it up to like 225 or 250. It looks like he can still fold a lot of hands.
Right, exactly. And it's pretty common, especially against aggressive players, to go 4-bet and then somebody go 5-bet and fold. So
all in.
He's gone completely the other way. Obviously trying to get called by some very specific hands, maybe lower pocket pairs, or...
I guess he didn't want to price Scott in. He didn't know what he had, and he thought with a lot of pairs, Scott's just going to call him. So if Scott has, you know, 8s, 9s, 10s, maybe even ace-queen, ace-king, you know, he's going to get called.
Scott Seiver played heads up against Patrik, and even though Patrik sort of came back and beat him, Scott was really impressive.
Yeah, he's an excellent heads up player.
Honestly, to those watching, it felt like Scott was just spinning Patrik around, and yet Patrik did still manage to get him in the end. But those things happen.
Call.
But I mean, this is by far the deepest heads-up stage we've seen of the Premier League Poker 5 so far. Do you know much about Tom's head-up game? I mean,
fortunately, I don't. I haven't ever played him online heads up, and of course, it would be nice to play in a tournament heads up with him, but.
Long look from Tom.
This is such a dry flop that very often it can cause bluffing back and forth.
Doesn't really like to give up if he has a chance to win a pot, does he, Tom? I'm the Bach. Decided against it, however. You have to kind of keep yourself in check if you're Scott Seiver, don't you? Just because you have the 2-to-1 chip lead, the blinds are still low enough that if you start getting the money, and you could be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they're actually playing a match. It's not going to be a splash fest here. It's a fun match. I mean, it's really it's great to be able to watch these two go at it. They're certainly among the two best of the young guns.
In a no limit cash situation, you know, everybody raises their button every hand or almost every hand, but it looks or seems really common now for players to be limping much more often on their buttons. Patrik was trying to do it every time, and same with Jungleman.
Call.
Among the Premier League.
So Tom raised on the button and
Just
Scott
limped.
Seiver.
It was a limp, and Scott
really?
Seiver checked.
Wow,
I'm almost
interesting.
positive.
So
yeah.
they're both playing. I'm surprised that Tom didn't raise with a pair.
So Scott's now checked the ace twice.
Check.
Has Dwan kind of outthunk him here a little bit?
$120.
And this is similar to the kind of things Scott was doing with Patrik. When he was betting, it was on the river. All his river bets were pot size or bigger.
Yeah, that's a significant bet. It's unusual, the size of the bet. And I'm sure Tom was tempted to call, basically because Scott easily could have had a flush draw.
Basically, there's been very little chip movement. Seiver's just slightly opened up his chip lead, but there's not a ton in it as far as where they started. Dwan needs to double up to get them back to level. And Scott's raised this slightly more than the min raise, up to 50. I wish I knew what that meant, Erik. Is it just trying to vary it up a little bit? Perhaps force Tom to make the re-raise bigger if he wants to make one?
I guess so. And Tom is sick of being raised every time. And this is where he cashes in on his tight image. Because he's been playing somewhat tight.
I mean, this is not. This pot's not over yet, is it?
No, it's not. Scott is certainly capable of either.
Quick all in from Seiver. That was the hammer. That was the plan from the start, I guess. Somehow.
That's strong. That's very strong.
This is turning out to be another classic heads-up bout here in Premier League. This event has had some infamous heads-up clashes over the years, especially between Phil Hellmuth and JC Tran back in Season 3.
Oh.
Here's a look back at one of their monster hands. Yeah, Phil's in a war here.
No raise.
Deathly silent out there. Wow, they're concentrating. And Hellmuth's got the pair.
Check. 15,000.
JC might take a card off here. He might think, well.
Raised to 30,000.
Wow. Now this may be his first misstep here, unless he gets real lucky and hits 3.
I mean, Phil's been pretty relentless about limping on the button and then checking the flop no matter what. So he's entitled to get some action when he flops something sooner or later, right? But it's still not a huge hand.
Well, the only thing is if Tran really follows through here, you'll have to probably bet both streets.
35,000. Call.
Oh, the quick call. And I mean, Hellmuth thinks he's got the best. He's trying to talk JC out of bluff in the river, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah.
He doesn't want JC to do it.
Oh, that's no good. See, that'll give JC enough to check.
No.
Unless he bets 100,000, he's no chance of winning this hand.
All in.
All in.
Oh my God!
Now, this would be the call of the Premier League, yeah? This would be some kind of special call if he musters it.
And, I mean, Phil Hellmuth would tell you that he's the only one in the world capable of making this call. Is there any kind of logical argument for it, Andy? Is it?
Well, he's seriously thinking about it. You got to give him credit for that, even if he folds.
I mean, has JC just made a really brave bet here, or a potential misstep?
I don't know. It's exciting. Hellmuth knows that he can only beat a bluff. He can. It's like JC has to have been bluffing the whole time. The flush has come. There was an ace up there. He has to have had nothing at all stages. Otherwise, Phil Hellmuth will not win.
Aren't there even some hands that JC could be bluffing with that Hellmuth can't beat?
No. You know, if he had an 8 or something like that with a better kicker, he wouldn't bet it. So it has to be a bluff all the way.
Call.
No! Wow, what a great call.
JC
had to test him, didn't he? He had to see if he really was Phil Hellmuth.
90. I felt you were weak. I thought I could move you off.
Wow, worship to the god. Worship to the god.
Club hit. It was a real tough call. Actually, I have 132.
Oh, how happy is he now? Tell him who you are, Phil.
Thanks. I mean, but the flush hit too, so I just, I don't know.
That really is the play of the Premier League.
No, we both knew the other
that
day
is
was
the
weak,
play
so I
of the
thought
Premier
maybe
League. Phil Hellmuth, you are a god.
I just tried to fold 3 times. You have good instincts. My instinct said if you fold, you lose.
After the break, we return to Premier League Poker 5 for the conclusion of Group B's 3rd league match. Welcome back to the Montesino in Vienna for Premier League Poker Season 5. We are heads up here in Group B's 3rd league match. It's Tom Dwan and Scott Seiver going toe-to-toe, and Seiver leads with 1.8 million chips. The winner will get 16 points to add to their total, and they will move into the top 3 on the league table. This will give them a very good chance of progressing through to the final.
Check.
You kind of overlook Seiver because he makes his decisions so much faster than guys like Dwan, you know? he's a much quicker thinker. When you think about average decision time,
he's trying to get Tom to hang himself a little bit here, checking the 10 on the turn. There's already 92,000 in there.
now is a time for one of his patented overbets. It would make a lot less sense here.
It's tough for Tom. He finally hit a pair.
It's a real chess match, this, isn't it? It's a funny chess match.
I mean, from Tom's perspective, he's getting 2.5 to 1 on a bluff. It's pretty hard to just throw it away.
It looks so much more like a bet that wants to be called, though, doesn't it? And yet, that's the sort of leveling aspect about it, I guess. He hates it. He knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it.
That's really annoying, especially when you have rags like a 9-4 and you feel like there's not really much that can help that hand, and then you hit the card that helps your hand, so you kind of you just end up, I think, being a little more likely to call with it.
Dwan getting shorter. For Scott Seiver, he's done a great job of whittling Tom away, really without any big hands. Now I'm sure Seiver's ready to kind of put the hammer down. Dwan's got about 20 big blinds. 21, in fact, 22. What kind of number?
Yeah, and I'm sure Tom is well aware the blinds are going up another 13 hands, and things are going to get a little more desperate.
For a certain type of player, this is an all-in, and then Erik, maybe some would say that he has just a few many chips to kind of do. It'd be a little bit reckless. Where would you go?
Well, yeah, it's an odd one. There's 60,000 in there, and it is it's more chips than you'd like to gamble in this spot. I think you'd be a lot more comfortable if you only had 200,000 or something. But Tom shows great restraint.
He does. He does. You would have forgiven him. Anybody would have.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who is in doubt as to how Tony G would have played that hand from Tom's position. I don't think.
Check. Bet 40,000.
Not laughing at Tom, more with him, Erik, because you can sympathize a poker player just being put in painful situation after painful situation.
Yeah, I mean, Scott's in a position where he can't win unless he bets, and
I know you were in a spot against Sam Trickett where you paid him off once and kind of were kicking yourself about it. And then it wasn't too long later where you found yourself again on a river again. And you just feel like, oh, he got me once. I'm going to pay him off again. He's going to show me the nuts. And
yeah, it's a horrible feeling.
And yet this time it would be right. And you know Dwan would call if he had won that last pot where he paid off the river bet, right? No.
Wow. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think if he hadn't called the last one, he would have called this one.
I mean, it's such a
And it just was
ridiculous
frustrating
non-show
that,
pre-flop.
Yeah, like ace-8 or something?
No. But I had a hand I shove like 98% of the time.
Gotcha.
And after check, it looks like I made a bad no-shove.
Scott dodged the bullet there.
He did, and
He didn't.
these swings are big. I mean,
didn't.
that pot was massive for Dwan, wasn't it?
Yeah, all of them are. I mean, the 120,000 swing is a pretty significant part of his stack right now.
There must be something about, I don't know, Scott Seiver's image at the table that he just seems to get people to do what he wants, doesn't he? He talks them into it, or... Tom had a thought about raising, thought of better against it. Good thing. He's actually won from this position a few times before, Erik, sort of leading on these types of flops.
Yeah, it's true. That's worked for him. I'm not going to be so effective this time.
No. Pretty standard for Seiver to call and let Dwan continue. I mean, with that card, he's going to have a lot of reasons to shut down, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem for Scott is that even though he has top pair, he can't be that thrilled with it because there's so many hands that can beat him.
How often do either guys have a queen here? I mean, what would Dwan have had?
Tom is just in a weird spot here because if he checks it, he knows he loses. So his only way to win it, there's 100,000 in there, is to make a bet.
And yet there's this question of would he have checked if his hand improved to an open-ended straight draw on the turn?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Scott's going to be thinking about.
Scott can't beat much here. On the other hand, Erik, can he say to himself, well, I mean, there's not much
call.
Yeah, there's not much Tom can have.
Yeah, all right. I mean, he only beats a bluff, but yeah, it's true that if Tom had two big cards, he probably would have been re-raising before the flop or raising before the flop.
So when you think back on the rivers, and I'm thinking that Tom would normally say to himself, I'm going to have an advantage on Scott Seiver in river decisions. Seiver's like, is he 3-0 or 4-0 or 5-0 in the
Well, I mean, this is one of the problems though when you're playing heads up, is that if you're the one that's hitting pairs and you're the one that's hitting cards, it makes it look so much easier.
Right. Yeah, this is Plan C now for Tom Dwan.
And Scott looks like has a pretty good hand
All
here.
in.
That's a good one.
Oh, he saw king first, Dwan, and thought it was all rosy. And actually, I mean, the way Dwan's looking,
Like
he's probably
maybe 12 outs for me to not snap.
That's what he says. Only the deuce, 3 or 4 is what he's saying.
Yeah, Tom actually got lucky. Although it's not out of the question for him to call here because Scott is moving in with a lot of hands that Tom is a favorite over.
250, 270.
Just a question of how he feels, I guess. He's got a total of 278. It might just
It's
be
a lot more tempting if the king has a stronger kicker, but king 3 is just tough. If it's king 9 or something, it's a lot easier to justify, because then you beat all the other kings. But here you lose to every king. You're an underdog to every ace. But still, it's a decision.
Gives it up.
It is sweet to sweat that king to start. Sweet.
And look like a 3.
Not a 3.
You have to be impressed, though, at how Tom has handled him. His patience.
I mean, I think if the situation were reversed, if Tom were on the button for that hand, he might have moved in with the king 3. And it's much easier to do that.
6 of them.
Call.
So here you have the situation we were just talking about, where Scott has the king 9.
Right, you are. This time Dwan has the ace, though. There's not a whole lot in it, but Dwan can...
Same spot, basically. I just called it.
Well...
say to himself, I haven't hit the whole range in a while.
Also on that flop.
Yeah, the king 3.
I take the king 3 here.
Big chance for the double.
Jack of diamonds. They never listen. Okay.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It was Scott's day, that's for sure.
I'll say.
Hey, what do you have that hand you min-raised?
I'll say. Scott Seiver, he has been great. A second, one blip, and now the win is going to put him actually 27 points and top of the table.
With 11 points for this match, that makes 20 going forward. So how does that situate you for the last heat?
I think there's 4 people ahead of me now, right? So I'm in pretty good shape to get the playoff at least.
We're starting to see people kind of jockeying for position and playing a little differently than they might if there wasn't a point structure. Have you seen any of that going on?
I don't think I've seen too much. There might have been some early on at the table, but when we got later, Elky and me and Scott were all pretty close in points, so there wasn't, there wasn't any stuff like that mattered too much. Patrik might have played a little tighter on his short stack because of that, because he probably just needed 2 or 3 points. But I'm not sure, he might have just had no hands too. So.
Okay, well, good luck in the final match. It's all to play for. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a second place, a last place, and now a first place finish for Scott, going in really strong position for the 4th final match.
Yeah, I feel great. It's good to get the win. Definitely, especially after just getting a last place. It's good to go from last to first.
Whenever I ask you how you feel like you played, you have a tendency to say, I got kind of lucky, I got some good cards, but you played really well.
No, I got really lucky again. Vanessa went all in when I had aces. I had ace-queen hold against ace-8. I got lucky that few people were bluffing when I had weak hands. Everything just worked out. It was nice.
Were there any points where some of the decisions you made were kind of point dependent, or knowing that the players you were playing against were thinking about points and maybe laddering up?
From the very start, I had a lot of point dependent decisions, just what hands to play or not to play, what people to try and play pots against, because it would really hurt to give some people chips over others. It was in my head the whole time.
Well, congratulations. Good luck in the final.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Here's how Group B stands after 3 matches. Scott Seiver has done so well to get himself into first position. Patrik Antonius' grinding style works for the top 2, and Yevgeniy Timoshenko solidifies that final table grouping. In the playoff zone, Jungleman 22 points, and for Tom Dwan up to 20 and looking in good shape. In the elimination zone, it's Elky on 16, Vanessa Selbst on 12, and Ben Wilanowski now mathematically out of the Premier League with only 2 points.
Congratulations to Scott Seiver, who moves to the top of the league table. Next time, Group A are back in action for their final league match, and the league is wide open. All of our 8 players are in contention. It's going to be another exciting game as we reach the climax of the league stages.
You shouldn't test my ego.
He'd rather not make it than play a hand.
Real nice.
Oh my God.
Don't answer his questions. I'm not going to listen to Tony anyway. He clearly has no idea what he's doing.
Boom! Let's go!